He yields back, and the chair now recognizes the gentleman from West Virginia for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And last month when we met, I said then that I think this whole process is probably inevitable. And as one of just two licensed engineers in Congress, I'm intrigued with the problem-solving possibilities that we have with this. I'm fascinated with the developments that have occurred so far in lane movement, as you referred to it, or the braking. But I am a huge skeptic about driverless cars. And I'm not buying this one iota yet. I'll go with all the others. I can see the possibilities of that. But at the last meeting, I raised some questions about IV&V. And everyone on the panel had no idea what we're talking about. So I ask you, because you're four different people, are you using IV&V for confirmation of the various steps that we're going through so far? I'm seeing a no all the way around it again. If we send a ship to Mars, or when we send a satellite into space, we run through all the steps to test it for individual verification and validation and make sure that it's going to work, because we don't want to rely on competitive peer pressure without having a third party validate what we're doing. And that's what we're looking for. I'm going to be looking for is third party, because I know companies are going to be under a lot of pressure to skip steps 2 and 3 and go right to 4 if possible, or skip 1 and go to 3, whatever that might be. They're going to move that because of competitive pressures. We talked a little bit when one of the things since that time, because I'm fascinated with this. Again, as the engineer, I know this is inevitable. How can we work with this thing to do everything but driverless? So when I've asked the question, when I've been back in my district, wherever it is, we're excited. We're going to have in fact, we're going to have a summit meeting about this, about driverless cars. But when I raised the question, would you put your 6-year-old granddaughter in the car and drive and let her go 40 miles to meet her brother, perhaps? Every one of them says no. Now I know it's going to be evolutionary. They'll develop more confidence with it. But when I was hearing about if something goes wrong, they're going to transfer operation back over to the person in the car. What happens if it is indeed someone that's intellectually impaired or has inebriated, and we've allowed them to get in that car to be able to get home, and then they're turning the transportation over to them when they're doing 60 miles an hour, and they say, okay, now driver, it's your car. I've got a series of questions about it. I'm going to remain a skeptic on this. I want to follow the money. I don't understand, other than insurance companies, who's really going to benefit for this. But as an engineer, let me skip to my last, so ask a question of this. If when we get to steps 4 and 5, because I've designed a lot of bridges, a lot of highways, culverts, I don't know how this is functioning yet. So is there something I should be working in my old company in engineering that starts to get ready so the cars, when we're at steps 4 and 5, is there a wire in the road? Is there something along the guardrail? Or is this merely sensing it? Is this all GPS driven? I need to have a lot more information before we get anywhere as close to that. Because if we're designing all these roads, why aren't we taking those things into consideration now, especially with this infrastructure bill that's going to have? So with that, can you tell me, what should we be doing in our highways to be ready for steps 4 and 5?
In terms of the highways themselves, we have to adapt to the highways. We can't expect the highways to adapt to these systems. That's why real-world testing around the world has to happen.
So in that case, Mr. Fleet, are we entirely, is it GPS driven, or is it sensing the side of the highway?
It's both. It's GPS, it's sensors.
You go through a tunnel, and in West Virginia, where we have almost 50% of the state does not have, I lose my signal constantly, and no one knows where we are on the, I don't know what happens at that point. So you're going to have to rely on a lot better control if you're going to use GPS. So if it's going to be sensing, how do we do that?
There's obviously the sensor development is a key part of that, but it's not just sensing, it's also GPS, it's also vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to infrastructure, DSRC, all of that coming together will enable that level 4 and level 5.
Unfortunately, thank you very much. I've run out of my time, but you can send, I want some engineering answers on this, not the 90% savings of accidents, because I think it's BS. It's not going to happen, just like we've had in debates here over my 7 years in Congress, that if we stopped using coal, we would eliminate 80% of the asthma attacks in this country. We know that's false. So I don't want to use a technique or a topic that says we're going to save 90% accidents if we adopt this. I want to have more facts. The engineer in me says I need more facts. So thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. The gentleman yields.